The phrase "boys will be boys" is commonly used to refer to mischievous behavior exhibited by young boys. Although children can sometimes engage in harmless mischief, the majority of them are still considered to be good kids. But what if a child's behavior is inherently bad and they are rotten to the core? On the day these two boys decided to skip class, they would reveal to the world the terrifying visage of pure malevolence. Amidst the busy shoppers at the Strand shopping centers in Liverpool on a chilly Friday afternoon, an eerie feeling pervaded the air. Two 10-year-old boys who had decided to skip school appeared to be intentionally drawing attention to themselves. How did they manage to get out of school for the day? The two boys were the perfect definition of good boys gone bad. Throughout the day, they shoplifted from multiple stores with batteries and some paint being a bulk of their loot. While on the surface it seemed like two young boys getting into trouble, the truth was much more sinister. Meanwhile, on the other side of the shopping center, Denise, a young mother, and her 2-year-old son James were spending the day shopping with her brother's fiancé and child. With 2 children and lots of shopping to do, Denise found it difficult to watch James at every moment. Even worse, James was beginning to get restless running from store to store. Unbeknownst to both of them, they were being watched from a distance. As Denise spoke with a butcher in an effort to purchase a cut of beef for her husband's dinner, she had no idea that her son James had caught the attention of the 2 boys in the mall. They watched as James walked around, trailing his mother. Realizing Denise was distracted, the boys decided to approach the young James. The 2 boys stealthily approached James while Denise had her back turned. They began to chat with him, gaining his trust enough for them to lead him by the hand out of the store. It took only a moment and he was gone. When Denise turned around, her son was nowhere in sight. The 2 10-year-old boys, identified as Robert Thompson and John Venables, took the young James on a 2.5-mile walk from Liverpool to Leeds and then to the Liverpool Canal. Despite a good amount of people noticing the boys, no one thought anything was wrong. To the innocent observer, it seemed like 3 young boys out for an innocent stroll. Unfortunately, things were about to take a very dark turn. The boys began to taunt James when they reached the edge of the canal. They threatened to throw him into the water so he would drown. One of the boys then picked the poor innocent James up and slammed him into the ground headfirst, injuring him in the process. As a lump began to form on James' head, the boys decided to take the abuse one step further. By this time, little James was crying uncontrollably. Some bystanders took notice, but both Robert and John were able to shoo them off with a lie. At first, the boys took James by a police station and actually discussed leaving him there. However, they decided against it and led the injured James to a nearby railway station. What happens next is so horrific, you might not be able to stomach it.
Also, if you've not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these animal stories every day. Now, back to the story.
After the boys reached the railroad tracks, they forced James to strip naked. They then splashed the paint they had stolen into his eyes and forced him to choke on some batteries as well. At this point, James was hysterical, and Robert and John knew they had to shut him up. Their next decision would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Displaying a level of brutality almost unheard of for boys their age, the boys kicked, hit, and stomped on the defenseless James. They hurled rocks and bricks at the little boy and then found a 22-pound railway fish plate. What happens next is chilling. The boys raised the fish plate over James' head and let go. The impact from the fish plate cracked the little boy's skull in over 10 places, killing him instantly. Robert and John then weighed down the boy's body on the railroad tracks, hoping a train would come and make the murder look like an accident. Unfortunately for them, this was only the beginning of their problems. At first, it seemed Robert and John's plan worked. James' body was struck by a train and split in two. 2 days after his murder, a group of young boys would wander upon the body, thinking it was a broken doll. When they realized it was a corpse, they immediately rushed to the nearby police station. Would justice be found for little James? The police immediately launched an investigation into the unprecedented murder of James, performing an autopsy that revealed he had died before being struck by a train. This was due to the fact that James' body had over 42 injuries in total. In fact, his body was so badly damaged there wasn't one injury that could have been determined as the fatal blow. Thankfully, the police had plenty of evidence to provide leads in James' case. The security footage at the Strand shopping center was the most damning and revealed that two young boys had taken James from the shopping center. The police were completely shocked, revealing that the brutal extent of the injuries would have never led them to guess it was a child who had inflicted them. With the footage of the boys found, the police were one step away from finding out their identities. The police released the images of Robert and John on national television, which led one woman to identify John. She knew he had been playing hooky from school that day and quickly contacted the police. It wouldn't take long for the boys to be swiftly arrested. Even though both Robert and John were only 10 years old, the horrific nature of their crime led the court to try them as adults. With all of the evidence piled against them, the boys were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, although they would have possibility for parole at the age of 18. Unfortunately for James' family and his mother Denise, both John and Robert were granted parole 8 years later. Due to the high risk of retaliation against them both, the now young men were given new identifiers. It seems totally unfair, right? Over the years, John would commit several more crimes involving children that would land him back behind bars. The whereabouts of Robert are unknown due to the witness protection program he was enrolled in. The untimely death of young James at the hands of two juvenile bullies who were supposed to be in school is an unjust tragedy. Although justice has been served, it does little to ease Denise's pain and the loss of her beloved child.